Moira Stewart was one of the great BBC news anchors. I think about 4 decades reading the news, and then she went off to Chris Evans. But she's had a scare with banking, and she's only narrowly avoided falling victim to a bank scam, which is revealed in today's front page of the Daily Telegraph. And it was sophisticated. It's described as a sophisticated banking scam, and it highlights how even the most vigilant individuals can be vulnerable to fraudsters' increasingly elaborate tactics. And she's now nearly 75. She admits to nearly falling victim to this scam that involves psychological manipulation and impersonation of her bank. Now, part of the problem, I'm afraid, is the increased authoritarianism and intrusion of our banks in our ordinary life anyway. The telephone calls, the aggressive nature of the aggressive and impersonal nature of these bank interactions. I must say, every time I have to call my bank, every time I have to deal with the bank, my heart falls. And I can think, well, there's another hour of my day gone. And last week, my bank decided, my bank had decided that there might be a fraudulent issue with my bank card, and it suspended my bank card about a week earlier. It claimed that it had sent me a text message to tell me I hadn't used my bank card. I didn't know. I hadn't received any text message. And the questioning to get the bank card to work again, besides having to go through the fraud department, the questioning was extraordinary, asking me questions that I could not possibly have known unless I opened my bank account. I told the person on the phone that I didn't have my bank account open at that time. And so, of course, I failed the identification, though they'd already got my ID. And they were asking me ridiculous questions like, when did I open the account? What date? But specifically, how would I know? This is something I did years ago. And I'm not even that, but the particular branch where I opened it up no longer exists. And I complained. I got through to a manager. By that point, I'd got home. I'd opened my bank account online. The manager then very kindly asked me this another series of ridiculous questions about, when did you pay this? How much did you pay for that? And so on. I was able to answer him, but I could only answer those questions because I had the account open in front of me. And so to ask these questions is absurd. It's just arrogant, it's bullying, and it's intrusive. And the scam for Moira Stewart began with a phone call from an individual posing as a bank representative who informed Stewart that her account had been compromised by someone colluding with a staff member at her local branch. And the point is, when banks call you, they won't tell you something until you've got through your security, and they don't call you with any warning. They just call you, or they leave a message saying, "We tried to call and you didn't answer." Sometimes these are these fake calls where the phone barely pings before they decide that you haven't answered, so they can then say in their bureaucracy that they tried calling you and you didn't answer. It's aggressive. It's nasty. And frankly, this plays into the hands of the fraudsters. This gives fraudsters opportunity and examples about how to behave. In the same way that the Israeli, or supposedly Israeli, pager story gives an example and opportunities to terrorists. So in Moira Stewart's case, the fraudster's use of the term inside job was a deliberate tactic to create a sense of urgency and alarm, making the scenario more believable and inducing Stewart to act swiftly. without thorough scrutiny. In an effort to resolve the situation, the scammer instructed her to visit another branch while remaining on the phone, directing her actions and dictating what to say to the bank staff. This technique is known as vishing, voice phishing, and it aims to maintain control over the victim and prevent them from seeking independent verification of the situation. Fortunately, Stewart's encounter with a cautious bank cashier turned the tide, and the young bank employee noticed inconsistencies in her behaviour and asked her to wait, ultimately referring her to the bank's anti-fraud team. And this intervention was crucial in preventing Stewart from losing money, as the anti-fraud team confirmed the scam. Stewart expressed feelings of anger, embarrassment, common reactions among scam victims, and despite the initial shame, she chose to speak publicly about her experience to raise awareness. This is significant, as scams like these often go unreported because of the stigma attached to being deceived. Deceived or bullied? It amounts to the same sort of thing. I think we should speak out when these things happen, because people need to know. And the scamming only happens because of the bullying in the first place. We need to get back to a situation where we can trust the banks. I don't trust my bank at all. I don't trust the banking system. So it doesn't matter to me whether this is somebody ringing me up to bully me from the authentic bank, or whether it's somebody scamming me with some ridiculous story. I'm afraid they will only meet hostility from me. And I find it doesn't mean it's any better. I'm still going to lose an hour or 2 hours or more of my day messing around with this abhorrent organization. But the bank has set the tone. The incident of Moira Stewart sheds light on the evolving nature of bank scams. Fraudsters employ increasingly sophisticated techniques, often using psychological manipulation to exploit trust and fear. They may use a variety of methods, such as phishing emails, fake websites, phone calls to impersonate legitimate institutions to gain access to sensitive information. And the scale of the problem is alarming. Last year, there were around 3 million reported cases of bank fraud in the UK, with losses amounting to 1.2 billion. Of these, over 230,000 cases were categorized as authorized fraud, where individuals were tricked into transferring money to fraudsters' accounts. The banking sector and regulatory bodies have been working to combat this issue through various measures, such as implementing more stringent verification processes, enhancing customer education, developing new technologies to detect and prevent fraudulent activities. But as scammers continue to adapt and refine their tactics, public awareness and vigilance remain crucial. And Stewart's experience serves as a reminder that no one is immune to these scams. It underscores the importance of skepticism, even when faced with seemingly credible sources. Simple precautions such as verifying the identity of the caller independently, not sharing personal information over the phone, being cautious about unsolicited contact from purportedly reliable institutions, all of these things can help prevent falling victim to such frauds. I always ask the person who's calling me for their name. And if they say, what's your name? My name's Dave. I say, well, Dave what? And if they won't give me a second name and say, I'm not permitted, or I'm not at liberty, I don't have to give you that name, well, it just raises my hackles. Why shouldn't they give me their name? If they ask me for my name, my date of birth, and my details, they should at least be generous enough to give me theirs. Even if these are invented, I don't care. I'm not talking to somebody who simply goes through the moniker Dave or Alice. The only people I know who live life with a single first names are members of the royalty, the Pope, or the occasional prostitute on the street. And I don't regard, I don't consider it appropriate to engage with streetwalkers who will only give me their first name. I wouldn't do it on the street. I won't do it on the phone. And I certainly won't do it with any grace, particularly if they've called me. So what? And the other thing which really annoys me about this is when they gabble their name. What's your name? What? And then you say, well, could you repeat that? And then they try and spell it phonetically using the military alphabet. It just becomes a nightmare. It's patronizing and it's abusive. They know full well that they've gabbled their name so that I won't get it. And they assume I won't care. Their name is as important to me as my name is to them. It's a matter of common courtesy. And while technological advancements have made banking more convenient, they've also provided fraudsters with new tools to exploit unsuspecting individuals. Public awareness, swift action by vigilant bank staff, as seen in Stuart's case, are key components in the ongoing battle against bank scams. But you know that this story exposes one of the main features. The key feature in helping Moira Stewart was an individual. Humanity. Real people help.